And hello, everybody. Welcome along. Another edition of the Cricket Badger podcast. By my reckoning, it's number 576 that you've been watching the Cricket Badger podcast for. And it's the first time we've got royalty on the podcast. It is the King of Spain himself, Ashley Giles. Ash, how are you?
Hi, James. Good. Yeah, good to be with you.
And good to see you as well. I've told you I'm going to ask you the 20 questions, the Cricket Badger 20 questions that I get former players to answer. We'll come on to those in a second. But first of all, in terms of your current role, working at Worcestershire, it's been a little bit damp and squidgy at times. It's not been the best of winters for you, but glad. Well, the sun's out at the moment. It's better now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a real worry, to be honest. Yeah, this winter we suffered 8 full floods of the ground, which is unprecedented. I mean, we've always had issues with flooding at New Road, but this winter was particularly bad. Meant that we were away from New Road for the first couple of months of the year, which is both frustrating but also really expensive, having to move everything elsewhere and lost revenues and stuff. So really difficult, but great place, great club, great people. So really enjoying it, and it's it's only 6 miles from my doorstep where I live in Droitwich. So really handy on that front too.
I tweeted when I saw the pictures of the floods this time, because it's a regular occurrence, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's a beautiful ground. It's one of the best places in the world to watch cricket, but it's not sustainable, is it? To kind of have those floods every winter, and as you say, the expenses that brings. It's kind of. Do you take the jump? Do you go somewhere else?
Well, that's the $1 billion question, I guess. Well, hopefully not that much, but yeah. I mean, what we've got underway at the moment. So the board have asked me to look at 2 things really. Well, what it would take to stay at New Road. What could we put in place in terms of flood mitigation measures? How could we develop the ground differently? And also on the other side, then what would a move look like if we were forced to move? So we're looking at both sides of that puzzle. The project, certainly on the piece around what would it take for us to stay at New Road, is very much underway, and we're expecting that report very soon. So yeah, lots to think about, but certainly as a business, it's becoming more and more challenging, the conditions and the expense of having to move and clear up, etc., and then the cost on your people, because what we expect of our people every time we get a flood to just go out and clean it all up again. And our grounds team are just phenomenal. I mean, what they put up with, and we're very lucky to have them.
Saw your pictures as well. You had some volunteers coming along and mopping down the seats and stuff at the start of the start of the New Road season, which was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we have a fantastic bunch of members. In fact, we had some members from other clubs come to New Road as well to help out. And the ground, the history, the view of the cathedral, the setting in the middle of summer. No one questions that. That is beyond doubt, and no one would really want to move from New Road unless we were forced to. And we'll do everything we possibly can, but as a business, we've also got to be realistic, and the sustainability of Worcestershire Cricket Club is more important in many ways. Some will say not, than the sustainability of New Road as a venue, and that's what is certainly top of my agenda.
Well, that's your job as an administrator, isn't it, these days, to try and make sure the club is healthy in 50 years, 100 years' time, and that's kind of one of the. But it must be a fantastic place to work. Walk out your office on a summer's day and walk out, as you say, the cathedral and the beautiful ground to wander around.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just across the bridge from the city. In the summer, it's magnificent. Not so good, James, if you try and wander out in the middle of winter at times, and you'd be walking into about 6 to 8 foot of water, which is pretty miserable water as well, to be honest. It's pretty mucky. But yeah, this time of year, it's just gorgeous.
Just another question I wanted to ask you before we get into the 20 questions. Jimmy Anderson, finishing Test cricket this week at Lord's. 700 wickets and counting as he embarks on his final test. You've been involved with Jimmy Anderson's career all the way through, really, haven't you? As a player, as a coach, as an administrator, all the rest of it. You've seen him blossom in an England shirt. What are your thoughts on him finally packing in and hanging up his boots?
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? When you try and think about how long this bloke has been playing at this level, it's frightening. I mean, I've been retired for 17 years from playing, and I played in Jimmy's debut at Lord's and played with him for a couple of years, a few years. So just demonstrates how it's almost half a lifetime you've got playing at the very highest level of what you do. He's an extraordinary athlete, an extraordinary performer. I've always sort of likened him to he's like a sniper in how he zeroes in on batters and works them out, and just finds that gap or that opening or that weakness. And yeah, what a great career. But to be honest, about bloody time, isn't it? He's gone on this long. He probably could go on for another. I don't know how long, but yeah, we all wish him the best, and he's been an incredible servant for English cricket. He should be very proud.
You get the impression he would carry on if he could, and probably be still playing in about 10 years' time. I looked at a video of his 81, his highest Test score earlier today, and Mark Nicholas on the commentary was saying he's been around forever, and that was 10 years ago, and he's still going now. It's crazy, isn't it? Anyway, let's get into the 20 questions, Ashley Giles. The first one is why cricket? Are you a cricket badger? What is it about this sport that has made you invest the majority of your life into it?
Yeah, so it has been the majority of my life. I grew up in a family that spent all its time in the summer on the village green in Ripley, a little village just outside the M25 on the A3 near Guildford. A beautiful, typically English village. And that's my earliest and actually some of my fondest memories of cricket still. It's this, it's so simple, so pure. And all I can ever remember in the summer is being there, and my mum, my sisters, my brother, my uncles, my dad, grandfather, the whole family were there, and we used to have long days, long weekends. I must have gone to school at some point earlier in the summer, but yeah, magical memories. Am I a cricket badger? Got to be close, haven't I? I mean that. So I've been playing cricket since I can remember on that village green, and even professionally, I've now been involved for 32 years, which is a long old time as well.
If not a cricketer, what would you have done with your life? Where would life have taken Ashley Giles if the cricket bat and ball had never got into your hands?
I've got no idea. I remember going for one of these futures meetings with someone at school, and they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to play cricket." And they were like, "Well, no, but you're gonna have to get a proper job." But I said, "No, I really want to play cricket." And in the end, I got up and left because they weren't having it. And it's a high risk strategy, but it is always what I wanted to do, and it. I am lucky to have been involved. I feel really privileged to be involved in the game as a player, administrator, coach, etc. What would I have been? I tell you what I always wanted to be was a pilot. If I wasn't, I've always had a love of aircraft, and whether that be commercial or RAF, I'm probably a bit too big for a fighter. Certainly nowadays, James. But yeah, I've always, I certainly would have. Was it Ricky Alcott was followed that, wasn't it, from cricket?
Yeah, he was a guest on the podcast not that long ago, talking about his times in the cockpit.
So that would have been me, but fortunately, here I am, still involved in cricket.
Who has been the biggest influence on your cricket career when you were young? Who was the person that maybe guided you into the game?
Well, there would be a number of people on the way, but mum and dad and the family, their support, always unwavering, never pushy, enabled me to do what I've done and always did. The hours, my dad particularly would have driven me all over the country, particularly in evenings, to nets and hanging around, as well as his his day job. A huge commitment, and I'll be forever grateful. But my whole family, I've got 2 sisters and a brother, who were also supportive. But there would have been coaches along the journey as well that I've worked with. Bob Woolmer, Neil Aberley was my first second team coach. A guy called Brian Ruby at Guildford, who's my first proper coach, where I had my first formal coaching when I was about 10 years old. And that list will go on of people who have influenced me right up until, my wife and my kids, who have been the rock behind me through some difficult times. So, but it would be difficult to look past mum and dad and their influence.
Paul Smith, the former Warwickshire all-rounder, has been a guest on the podcast a few times. No, Paul, and he talks in the highest possible terms of Bob Woolmer, and pretty much everybody I've ever met that's had coaching off Bob Woolmer says the same. He seemed to have kind of got it, what it took to be a good coach, and maybe he was one of the people that you took a strand out of Bob Woolmer into your own coaching.
Yeah, well, I mean that's it's very kind. So I mean, Bob was an extraordinary coach, and the 2 best technical coaches I've worked with are Bob and Duncan Fletcher. Fletcher also had obviously clearly a big influence on my career. I think what I've always done is look to take pieces of everyone you meet. I think is an opportunity to learn something, and none of us are natural leaders or cricketers or coaches. And if you're the right sort of sponge, if you like, you can just, okay, I like that. I like a bit of that. And you take a bit of everyone and hopefully form your own sort of character. And that's what I think I've done with those coaches, particularly, have influenced me. And some of it you don't like, and you go, I don't like that behaviour.
Yeah,
we all have those at times, but Bob was an extraordinary man, and taken far too young.
What's been the best moment in your cricketing life? If you could relive 24 hours again, have it all again and all that joy again, where would you go?
Probably difficult to look past the Ashes 05. Probably halfway through my partnership with Kev, because the bit just before that was quite painful, watching that day unfold where it looked like we might get bowled out. So if it were 24 hours, probably halfway through that partnership, through into the next day, the parade, and the fun we had there was a very special moment. But there will be others on the other side. Leading Warwickshire to the county championship in 2012, I was very proud. Obviously being with England when we won the World Cup as MD in 2019, very proud. Lots of great moments shared with some really great people.
I remember I went to quite a lot of that 2005 Ashes series. I remember being at Trent Bridge as you and Matthew Hoggard were kind of nervously steering England across the line that day, and it got a bit tense, didn't it, at times, that Ashes series. It was an incredible series to watch, but surely to being a part of it must have been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to think that any series will ever beat that series, and a lot was made of last year's Ashes series, and there was some fantastic cricket played, but it's that side we went up against, almost the Galacticos of cricket, and just the history. 20 years since we'd won the Ashes, and every Test match was like a series in itself. There was just so much action, and it was at times so horrendous to be involved in it because of that. But then when you reflect, and as I said before, how special it is to share those moments with what I consider a really special group of people, whether that be the players or coaches, and all our families who went through it as well.
How close did you get, or how involved in the aftermath of the celebrations after the Oval were you? Because I mean, with the pictures of Freddie and KP with their bleary eyes are legendary, aren't they? Were you close behind?
Not anywhere near that level. I managed to get probably 3 hours sleep, I think, or 3 or 4 hours sleep. Well, I think we'd all had a few. At that point, we only won the Ashes every 20 years, so you tended to make the most of it. And it was an extraordinary 24 hours, because the bus ride we were told about after the day's play, and we just thought, there'd be one man and the dog, and it would be us and our families, but we'd still have a good time. But the streets were just full, and when we got to Trafalgar Square, and you couldn't see pavement, there were just thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So just extraordinary scenes.
Yeah, absolutely captured the public's imagination. I've got you down there as the cricket badger meets the King of Spain. Did that King of Spain tag, which you've put yourself on there, and I'll show you a picture I've got here as well of I use in that front one of a load of lads at a cricket game there. Giles is our king with the Spanish flag there. When did that come? I mean, I know the story of the mug, but for people that don't, talk us through that.
Yeah, so everyone sort of associated the mugs a lot with my benefit year, and that's not true. My benefit year was after the Ashes, so 2006. But around, I think it was around 2002-03, the shop at Edgbaston asked for some samples of mugs for the shop, and 2 samples came back, and they obviously knew nothing about cricket, or did. And instead of being the King of Spin, they came back the King of Spain, and the King of Spain was born at that point. But we thought nothing of it. There were 2 originals, and then over time, Nick Owen from TV fame, and Nick, that Nick, he got it on local TV, and then it ended up in the papers, and then it's just slowly started to build. I had a great year in 2004, and it really started to fly, and then obviously into the Ashes. And actually, talking about Trafalgar Square, I've got a picture actually in a different room here, that right under the column, Nelson's column, is the Spanish flag with some people holding it up with Giles is our king.
And did you find that annoying at the time, or did you just find it funny straight away?
It's all good, no problem at all. And actually, it's still the one thing. So when you walk past people and you've been clocked, and you get that, someone double takes you, and you wait, and they normally get about 5 yards down the road, then shout King of Spain. And so however long I've been retired and whatever else I've done, that's the bit that sticks. And I think that's, again, going back to those memories of 2005, that's the bit I get more than anything, is that summer, is that series. People just want to hear about it. And it's actually, I think, the one thing when we talk about it as the individuals or as a group at times, that you can still hear a pin drop in a room, because everyone's just fascinated by that series.
King of Spain, good nickname. The wheelie bin that Henry Blofeld did on TMS. I don't think you liked that as much, did you?
Not really. I think Blowers said it was a term of endearment, and it's fine. I really don't fall out with people for very long. I don't think my mum, God rest her soul, was that impressed. I think she might have throttled Blowers, but it's all good, And I think it just depends where you are as well at a given time. And I think that was probably a rougher time in my career, and so just compounds things that get into your head. But now it's all fine. But no, it's not one of the ones I would choose, James.
We've done your best day, and what about the worst moment in cricket? Then a day that you would not want to relive.
Oh, it's funny, isn't it? Because in cricket, I think you remember the bad days often so much more than the good ones, and you probably, I think in any career you're going to have more bad days than good generally, unless you're an absolute rock star like Tiger Woods or someone of that ilk. So from an Ashes point of view, I think that last series 6-7, being over there, I remember dropping Ponting on 40, and he got 140, and that was my last Test match. And and all of the fallout from that. And then I came home because my wife was ill, so that was all really bad. As a coach, probably the Champions Trophy final when we were walking it, and then we just had a blow up, and we went from walking it to losing it, and that it was a moment where at that point, it would have been our first global 50 over trophy. And those sort of sliding door moments, you wonder what may have happened if that. And then probably when I was coach also at Edgbaston, and we lost the championship in 11 on the last. We went in favourites to that last round, couldn't bowl Hampshire out. Lancashire won down in Somerset, and we didn't get over the line. That was a sickening day. But these are all cricket moments. There's a lot more important things happen to people than just losing matches. So I'm very aware of that as well.
I've changed the banner on the bottom. We've done the King of Spain thing, so I put your real name up there now. Ashley Giles, the guest on the Cricket Badger podcast today. Who was your cricket hero? Was there a poster boy when you were young, a cricketer that you looked up to that you thought, "God, if I could be him, I'd be happy"?
Yeah, definitely both of them. Through that, both of them's Ashes, and then the 80s period. Yeah, because I started as a left arm seamer as well, and so I wanted to be that all rounder. Never going to be beefy, but he was my superstar. And that era of players, I probably wouldn't like to face it, but I just remember that West Indies attack of the 80s. It was just lethal.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't want to play against them, like Marshall, just a genius, and Holding and Patterson and etc. Garner. So all that sort of era, was what I enjoyed very much.
If you could trade lives, Ashley Giles, with a current cricketer and live their life for a day, jump inside their body, have their skills and their life, who would you pick?
Who would I pick? I think it'd be interesting to see what someone like Virat goes through. Just the noise and the energy that sort of surrounds everything he does is just on a different level. So how he manages to cope with that and stay on track is it takes a hell of a lot. But it'd be quite an interesting life for a day.
They're on a different level, aren't they? The top deck Indian cricketers, they're just worshipped over there, aren't they? They can't just nip down the local Tesco's, can they?
No, it's the one place you tour as a cricketer where you're treated like as you'd imagine Beckham, and that it doesn't matter what level of cricketer you are. Yeah, around the hotels, it has that buzz. Everyone knows who you are. Everyone knows what your record is. Everyone knows what you've done. etc. And it's it's a fantastic environment, amazing place.
I'm going to put you in charge of world cricket, Ashley Giles. You can do whatever you like. What's the first thing you'd change or do to make the game better?
Oh, wow. Well, I think we're moving to a really interesting time in this. It's not conflict at the moment, but the battle between sort of bilateral cricket and franchise cricket. And I think at some point we've got to try and find a proper place for both. So we have our best players playing international cricket, but they also have the opportunities to play in these big franchise competitions. So whether you end up a bit like football with having international windows, I don't know, but I can see there being at some point almost a two-tier system of the franchise leagues. I think we'd all hope the 100 would be in the top league of that of those divisions. But then, as I say, windows so that those really good players, like seeing James Buttler all the time, for example, show his wares, and Ben Stokes and the like, would be really important.
Do the ICC need to be a little bit stronger? Because I always think that, I said to you earlier about your job at Worcester is to try and make the game strong and healthy in 50 years' time. Surely somebody needs to take it by the scruff of the neck and sit the countries down around a table and say, where do you want to see this game of cricket in 50 years' time? And how do we get there without all falling out and everything falling apart? There needs to be a kind of somebody on the tiller, doesn't there?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a coming together at some point, and I think we're actually in the, we're possibly in one of the biggest changes, certainly in England, of cricket that we've seen for decades, and that is is probably down to the conversation around private investment into the 100 and how that changes the face of the game. But yeah, but it is difficult because we're talking about a lot of money in the game, and that money brings power. And I don't think we've seen probably even the tip of it yet. We know how big a competition the IPL is and how much power the Indian market carries. But imagine, if Saudis come on board into cricket, imagine how Major League Cricket could develop with the right backing. It's a really ever-changing environment. But yeah, we've got to protect the core as well for me, and Test cricket is part of the core. We're probably going to see less of it in the future, but we need to protect the integrity and the quality of that whilst we have these other forms of the game that are more commercial.
If you were starting your career again now, and you could speak to the young Ashley Giles, a little wet behind the ears, 12-year-old or whatever, is there anything you'd tell him to make his career go better? And if you were the young Ashley Giles, it's twofold this question. If you were that 12-year-old that I was talking to, would you be proud of where Ashley Giles got to?
Yeah, I don't like doing it a lot because I've been very fortunate. I've been, to whatever's good and bad has happened. As I said, I've been involved professionally in the game for 32 years, so that's a huge privilege. But if there were one thing, I'd probably, and I think I was pretty professional, probably how I looked after myself to get as much longevity out of my career as I possibly could. That would be one thing. The other side is, and it was always seen, I think when I was coming through as a young player, a bit of a dark art, but the mental side of the game and how important that is. We work on our muscles in the gym, we work on our game in the nets, but we always say the top 6 inches is almost the key bit to performing at the highest level. How much time and effort do we really give that bit, and how scared are we of it? And I think I would have worked harder on those 2 bits particularly, or that would be the advice. Would the young guy be proud? I hope so. Yeah, because I like looking back, and I try something I tried to say to young players nowadays is remember where you came from, remember that journey, because it's almost ingrained in you that when you get to a certain level, that's how you're judged. If you're a test player, that's how you're judged. That can't be everything, because every one of us has come from a background similar to mine, where you started on the village green, you play your first game, you get your first 100, you take your first catch, all of that stuff, and every level you go up is really special. When I played my first class game, I thought, that's it, I've done it now. If I was to retire tomorrow, and that goes on. So I would encourage all people in all professions, but particularly in ours, to remember that journey, all the people that influenced you, where you've come from, and what an achievement that is.
I often think that when we're talking about England players getting dropped or whatever, and kind of they disappear off Sky TV in terms of the test matches, they still go back and play for their counties, or most of them do, and have another 3, 4, 5, maybe even longer years in county cricket. And that's still what most of us that never played the game at the highest level would chop our right hands off for. But people almost like dismiss them as kind of it's the former England player. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose it's part of the business we're in, and it'd be like watching England football at the moment, wouldn't it? We build up to knock down, and it's these extremes of opinion, much of the time about people we have no idea about, and what they're going through at any given time. And I think that's why I love some of these I think, brilliant reality sports programs like Drive to Survive. And there's others. The Americans do them particularly well around American football, where you actually get to not fully know the person, but to probably get inside there a bit more and see what's going on. And I think it makes you appreciate a bit more what people go through and how hard it is.
Some of those documentaries now are just a different level, aren't they? So what we used to get in the kind of 80s, 90s, totally different. We're going to take a very short break, Ashley. Going to say thank you to manscaped.com for their continued support of the Cricket Badger podcast. We'll be back with Ashley Giles. Got some more questions for him after this.
What is big groomed energy? When you have it, they just know, you know? It's an air about you, the charisma that screams confidence quietly. With BGE, you never have to prove anything because you are the thing. Get the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 and get big groomed energy.
There you go. Thank you to manscaped.com. You can get 20% off and free shipping if you quote Badger with your orders with manscaped.com. There you go, Ashley. Let me know what Ashley Giles is going to rush off and do after he's finished with me today. But here's my guest today, Ashley Giles, the former England cricketer, administrator, coach extraordinaire. And we are going to go through some of the more frivolous questions now of the 20 questions now, Ash. The first one is, they say all rock stars want to be sportsmen and vice versa. If you could have been famous doing something else, what would you like to have done?
Well, I guess if it's in that line of work, I come from the same village where Eric Clapton grew up. So I cannot play any instrument to save my life. But I think doing something like that, playing the guitar, having Clapton's life would have not been too bad.
If you could meet anybody, living or dead, kind of the dinner party question. I'll allow you 3 guesses if you want, or you can have just one person around for a beer. Who would you like to meet?
Who would I like to meet? I think Obama would be a good start. Looking back, a bit of an American trend here. So probably someone as far back as Abraham Lincoln. Did some pretty amazing things, and then Kylie Minogue. I've just got a soft spot for Kylie.
Most of us have.
Don't tell me.
They're going to make King of Spain the movie. Who's going to play Ashley Giles in the title role?
George Clooney, definitely. I think that's we might have to dye his hair for the earlier sequences, but I think I've got it covered otherwise in terms of the silver fox bit now. So that was an ongoing joke between Kev and I when we were that 2005 period, because I had the little grey flecks. So I tried to convince him it was a George Clooney look, but no one really bought it. I
don't know. He wasn't critical, was he? Because his hair at the time was a disgrace.
Yeah, well, and now he's really grey. I couldn't believe it when I saw him on the Cricket Legends the other day. I thought he might use a bit of colour, but he's certainly gone for the full silver fox look.
Age catches up with us all, I'm afraid. When was the last time you can remember feeling really nervous? Are you a nervous kind of waiter or individual, or did you just take things in your stride?
No, always. I think nerves is normal, isn't it? It's that adrenaline feeling that goes through your body when you're preparing for anything. I used to say to my daughter when she was playing sport that that is just your body preparing to go to work, and I think that's what you've got to tell yourself. But it's much harder on this side than on playing. I think when you're sitting on the sidelines watching matches, watching tight finishes. But I try to stay, and it's even now watching sport. Again, going back to the football, watching England, watching penalties. I tend to try and just stay as flat as possible, just as normal as possible, and it's a bit sad, but it just over years of being involved in these situations, not being too high or too low, and just trying to remain pretty even keeled.
Alan Shearer said on the commentary the other day that when you're out there, you're in control, whereas kind of watching from the commentary box or watching from the stand, you're not in control. So therefore, the nerves are worse a little bit. And you kind of just hinted there as a coach or administrator, the kind of same is true, isn't it? I mean, we had Kashif Ali on the podcast just recently, one of your guys at Worcester. Really nice lad, isn't he? Came on and spoke really nicely. But when you see one of your own team go out there and bat and do well, or bowl and do well, it must be. Is it as satisfying as you doing well yourself, or is it even better sometimes?
Yeah, it's very different. But I think that's almost when you've made that journey from the player to the coach and that's sort of what I still miss about coaching is taking that player from A to B, helping them on that journey, or that team from A to B, and being part of that journey with them. That's really rewarding. Yeah, when you're the player, you only have one person to think about. And really, I know you're part of a team and you help your teammates, but really it's you're almost CEO of your own business, and you've got to make sure every part of that business is right to go out and perform and basically make money. That's your living. When you're going to coaching or management, you've got everyone to worry about, and people at different stages of their cycles or form, or you've got Jimmy Anderson to Harry Brook in terms of age differences and journeys, and that can be a bit more difficult.
How hard was your role in COVID? Because that must have been bloody awful.
Yeah, that was the hardest period of my career, I think, playing and management, because in some ways, I think we felt like your hands are tied a little bit, and that's not by ECB, but it's by the situation, because we had to get cricket on. We wanted to get cricket on, but we were probably putting players through situations that just weren't ideal, and asking them to do things that really in normal circumstances you wouldn't. And I know people say, well, there was a lot worse things happening in COVID, a lot of people done, and we know that, and there were worse things, but it was a very difficult time for anyone, and winning almost became secondary to getting the game on, and I think what we did manage to deliver was cricket. I think we were the first international sport back. A huge amount of work went into getting those environments up and running and safe, and in doing that, we helped save the wider game, I think, and particularly the game in England. So there's some good work done there.
Well, I was very grateful it came back, because when COVID started, I did commentary on cricket in Leeds and various other things, and that obviously all just stopped. And as soon as cricket came back, it started again. So I was very grateful it came back quickly.
Yeah.
I always thought in that time, actually, I mean, I know Rooty a little bit from my time at Yorkshire, and he is a cricket badger. He loves it, doesn't he? He just lives and breathes it. And I kind of was thinking from the sidelines, I've not spoken to him about it, that maybe somebody like him, kind of thrown into a cricket bubble, would actually kind of revel in that, because he loves the game. Whereas other people who are maybe not as 100% cricket orientated might struggle a little bit more because their surroundings have disappeared.
Yeah, I think everyone struggled with it at different times, and I think up front it was a novelty. It was new, right? Let's get on with it. Throw ourselves into it. We're doing something that no one's ever done before, and we're bringing cricket back, so people at home have got something to watch and enjoy. But I think as soon as the end of that first summer, it was starting to wear thin, and it was clear, the effects of these environments are different on everyone. As you've talked about, everyone's slightly different and will react differently, but it got everyone down at different points where you're spending a lot of time on your own in a room. You're spending a lot of time just eating alone, where there's 2 meters distance between you and the next person. So it's not a very enjoyable experience. You end up just eating and going back to your room again and being alone, and in environments that are high stressed anyway, because it still comes down to performance. That wasn't easy to manage. And I think then when we went abroad, you had the added layer of I don't want to get it now because then I get stuck, wherever I am for another 2 weeks or more. And it just added layers and layers of anxiety that aren't the best thing when it comes to going out and trying to perform for your country.
And then you're scoring 100 in front of nobody because the grounds are empty as well. So it's totally different dynamic, wasn't it? Thank goodness
that was some of the most bizarre moments for me were watching South Africa play England at Cape Town, which is a ground I went to because I went a lot there because I played 4 winters out there when I was a young cricketer from 19, and I'm the only person in the ground pretty much watching. And you see this international unfold with that beautiful backdrop, or the same at Old Trafford watching England play Australia in a one-day international. And I'm sort of alone sitting on my balcony in the hotel, no one else around, just quite bizarre.
Yeah, thank goodness that's finished. COVID's over and hopefully never comes back.
Yeah.
What is the top item on your bucket list? Things to do before you die. Ashley Giles, what would you have as the number 1 pick?
I'd actually like to live in the States for a while at some point. I really enjoy, we enjoy the US. I'd love to go and watch a Ryder Cup. I've never been to a Ryder Cup, so spend a couple of days at Ryder Cup would be great. And what else? Don't know, those sort of things. And I think it's certainly now more, I think the older you get, it's more the experiences and the experiences for family and friends rather than the items that you often crave when you're younger. So, we love holidaying to the States, and maybe that's because my wife's Norwegian, so she had a lifetime of being cold, and going to the States, cricket really, although we talk about it taking off, as you can sort of escape there and get away with just enjoying your holiday.
How cool are you on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the Fonz, 1 being me? Where would you fit on that spectrum?
I think you're being a bit harsh on yourself.
2 then.
Yeah. I don't know, midway, just under midway. I think the issue is when you do the jobs I've done, everyone just thinks you're boring and you're an old fart. Grey hair probably doesn't help, but I think I don't know about cool, but I think I'm pretty good fun. I think I think I've always had a good balance. I believe in all the teams I've worked with, and even now on the business side, that we should enjoy what we do and we should be able to have some fun and have a laugh. And that's really important. Life's too short not to.
It goes back to what you were talking about with the 2005 Ashes and the celebrations. You've got to celebrate your successes in this life, haven't you? When you have a good time, you should celebrate it.
Yeah, and what is success? Because there's a lot of bad stuff going on, and now my daughter's just coming in behind me. So there's a lot of bad.
It's not quite like that BBC News kid that came in. Can you remember? Did you see that when they?
Yeah, got dragged out. No, I mean there's a lot of bad stuff goes on in the world, and I think I think we can spend a lot of time getting down in the dumps on ourselves as well, and life is too short for that.
If you had access to a time machine, in fact, I've just delivered one outside your house there. It can take you forwards or backwards in time. Where would you like to take it?
Where would I like to take it? If I didn't have to be involved in it, I think that the periods of the wars would have been really interesting to see how there was no risk. I know that sounds but I suppose going back to 2005 for a couple of days would be quite good fun as well. I'm not that keen of going too far into the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back, I enjoy my history. So even like the moon landings and things like that, those sort of periods are just amazing.
I think you've probably answered this next question already, maybe. But if you could have a second home anywhere in the world, where would you like to stick it? Is it the States or would you go somewhere else?
Florida. Yeah, that's an easy one. yeah, would love to spend more time there. We've been very lucky, fortunate that we've been able to holiday there quite regularly with the kids as they were growing up. So we've got some very special memories there. But to wake up in a place where it's just clear blue skies, whether it's really hot or not, that sun on your back and on your face is absolutely fantastic.
It wasn't quite like that there on some of the T20 World Cup games I was covering. It's underwater, wasn't it, for much of it? It was like your new road for much of that Cricket World Cup. But I think generally speaking, you're right.
Yeah.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would you change?
What would I change? I know what my teeth, I think. Yeah, I've always had awful teeth. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? But yeah, I would have. I probably looked after my teeth a bit better when I was younger, and not had so many mints in the field when we were out there. What else? Not a lot, I don't think. Yeah, again, I think it's dangerous to look at change and stuff too much, because I've been very, very lucky and privileged to have done what I've done.
And it's good to be happy with yourself as well.
Yeah.
What will you be doing in 10 years' time, Ashley Giles? Will you still be at Worcestershire CCC, or will you have moved to America to take up a job with American cricket?
I don't know. What I do know is 10 years seem to pass really quickly at the moment. If I look back at the last 10, where that time's gone, and if I go forward 10, I'll be 61. So I don't want to rush it away too quick. I love the game. Again, I feel incredibly privileged to be involved in the game of cricket, and I hope that continues for a long, long time, because I think I've got good stuff to offer. But working in sport, full stop, is great, because you meet really interesting people, and it's often a very challenging environment, which I'm finding out. At Worcester and county cricket is very challenging, but it's also very rewarding.
We got to the final question of the 20, and it's up to you now to pick a question, because I always ask people as the last question, if you had been interviewing yourself today, what have I missed? What one question could you have asked yourself to get a wonderful and exclusive answer?
It's going to take a while, this, I think. What would I really want to know about me, or pick my brains on? I suppose it's my biggest learnings from 17 years in leadership now, really. I suppose that's the stuff that I sort of live and breathe every day, is around, so what are your learnings? And if I answered that question, I would say, well, a few things. People are the most important thing, so surround yourself with the right people, and don't give on that, because it can be a huge drain on you and everyone else around you. I would say that accept that failure is inevitable. And that's a bit of a blow, but it is. You do these jobs, you do any job, you're going to fail, and you have to be able to dust yourself down and pick yourself up and go again. And I think that thing around the top 6 inches is really important, is that how we both develop and work on mental strategies, but how we also protect ourselves on that front. Well-being's become a bigger and bigger problem, and giving people the strategies to be able to cope, I think, is really important. In a world where pressure just keeps coming in, I think that's absolutely crucial. And building environments where people can thrive and enjoy themselves and be the best version of them. So being the architect of an environment is also really important, because I've seen both sides of it. I've probably been involved in both sides of it at times. But in environments where people are safe to get it wrong, so they can get it right next time, where they trust you, where they know you've got their best intentions at heart, and they can just go out and deliver, I think is where you want to be. So I suppose that's a question I would ask myself, and there you go, you got the answer.
I should have had you doing this entire podcast. That was very good. In terms of the stresses and strains and the top 6 inches and everything you just spoken about there, it seems to be getting worse because they're playing more and more. Obviously, social media, the intensity of everything seems to be being ramped up all the way through. When I started watching cricket, it seemed to be a lot, not slower pace, but a little bit more relaxed and a bit chilled, whereas it now seems to be, as I say, more intense. We need to kind of look after people, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And people need to look after themselves. And that's also a really key aspect. And to steal a line from the psych who used to work with us with England, leaders need to put their own oxygen mask on first. It's a bit like that. On a plane, you're taught to put yours on before you help someone else, and that's so important. A leader, of course, values the people around them, but if they're not looking after themselves, then the whole thing can go to pot pretty quickly. And I also worry about the nature of news nowadays, the 24-hour thirst for news, and of course social media and those pressures. And I think as any advice to a player coming through is, I know it brings its certain rewards with it and benefits, but I'd avoid it like hell, because when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter. What's most important is what you deliver, what your captain and your coach think, what your teammates think, and what you're doing on the field, not what someone is talking about you on the outside. So that's and again, going back to the football, I think it's been interesting this Euros. It's the first time I've heard this England team talk about those sort of things rather than just focus on the job, and it shows what impact it can have on people.
He does seem to be right on that, doesn't he, Gareth Southgate? The kind of that togetherness, that looking after each other. He seems to be pretty clued up when it comes to that. It might not be the most exciting football to watch, but the team seems to be quite a cohesive unit.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's essential, because ultimately you're going to fail. You're not going to win every game, but how you care and look after those people and pull for each other is what will get you through more of the tougher times. And that ability, as I talked about, to get up and go again in every challenge. And I think that's one of the things I'm probably most proud of, is that I've had a number of challenges, but I'll keep coming, and I'll keep getting up, and I'll keep learning, and go again. I think there's what's the Japanese saying, Nanakarobi Yoki. I think it literally translates to get knocked down 7 times, get up 8.
I'm glad you translated that for me, because I'd have been struggling.
That's a pretty good way of looking at things. That I think that's a great test of character. Is if you just come again, and I'll get up. It's fine.
I've really enjoyed this chat, Ash. That's the end of it. And we've come to the end of the Cricket Badger podcast with Ashley Giles. And he's gone through the 20 questions, answered them expertly. And we all wish you well at Worcestershire CCC, Ash. Hopefully the floods stay away. Hopefully you get the ground sorted out. And whatever decision you make there, good luck with it all.
Thank you, James. Really appreciate it. Good to talk to you.
And thank you, everybody out there, for watching / listening to the Cricket Badger podcast. We'll be back very soon with some more. Cheers, everybody.